Paratmanamekam Jagadbijamadyam Niriham Nirakaramokar Vidyam Yato Jayate Palyate Yena Vishvam Tamisham Bhajeli Yate Yatra Vishvam. Hari Om Tat Sat. Hari Om Tat Sat. Hari Om Tat Sat. Dear devotees, so in the last class we had discussed some of the very important verses where the topic of discussion was the importance of habitual remembrance of Ishvara. So if you all remember the rule, the principle, the law, what is the rule? Bhagavad Anusmaranam is Bhagavad Prapti Hetu. The Hetu, the cause of attaining God is what? Bhagavad Anusmaranam. Constant remembrance of Ishvara becomes the cause of attainment of Ishvara. This we have seen. And in the last verse, that's why Sri Krishna had stated, Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu mam anusmara yudhyacha. A very significant instruction is being given. It's an instruction. Instruction for us to do something. So what is the instruction? Krishna is saying, therefore, sarveshu kaleshu, at all times. All times means, how do you remember God? With all earnestness, with a mind saturated with devotional mood, bhakti, and in an uninterrupted manner, nairantaryena, with an uninterrupted manner, with all earnestness and a mind which is saturated with bhakti, we constantly remember God. And what? Yudhyacha, and perform your day-to-day duties. That is a very important point. There is no question of running away from the situation in which we are. So this remembrance of Ishvara has to be done wherever we are, in whichever situation we are. We should learn to spiritualize everything. That is the secret. And Mayarpita Mano Buddhi, a person whose mind and buddhi is Mai Arpita, which is completely Mai Samarpita. A buddhi and mind which is completely surrendered and Samarpita in Ishvara, what happens? Mameva Ishyasi. That person will attain me and me alone. Na atra samshayaha. Hey Arjun, have no doubt about this. Do not harbor any doubt in this regard. So this was the last verse which we saw, in which the stress was on constant, habitual remembrance of Ishvara. Now the same idea continues in the next verse. Now the coming next few verses are also very important and significant, where we will see, owing to this constant remembrance of Ishvara, we succeed in attaining the Ishvara at the last moment, at the time of death. This happens. How? Let's see. Krishna says, Abhyasa yoga yuktena cetasa nanya paramam purusham divyam yati parthanu chintayan. Sri Krishna says that cetasa anuchintayan. Every word is important. Cetasa means with the mind. Anuchintayan. Anuchintayan means meditating. With the mind which is now meditating. Meditating, how to meditate? Shankaracharya makes one point very clear. Meditating how? According to the instructions coming from the scriptures and the Guru. Even meditation has to be done based upon what the scriptures tell us and what the Guru tells us. So based upon the instructions that we derive from the scriptures and the Guru, when the mind is engaged in meditation, and then what? Such a mind is engrossed in a different kind of a yoga. Now we all have heard about Bhakti Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Karma Yoga, and Dhyana Yoga. These are the 4 yogas usually we talk about, we discuss about. Here Sri Krishna is talking about another kind of a yoga, which is Abhyasa Yoga. And what is this Abhyasa Yoga? Abhyasa Yoga means, let us try to understand what Abhyasa is. Shankaracharya says, what is the meaning of Abhyasa? He says, Abhyasa is the constant striving to remember Ishvara. The constant striving of the sadhaka to keep his mind fixed on Ishvara and Ishvara alone, uninterrupted by any contrary idea. Once again I repeat, Sri Krishna is saying, Shankaracharya says here, Abhyasa means what? That striving of the human mind to be focused on one single thought continuously, uninterrupted by a contrary idea, uninterrupted by any idea which is contrary to the idea of Ishvara. This kind of a striving is what is Abhyasa. It is a practice. And this practice itself is yoga. As you know, yoga means what? Yoga in different contexts has got different meanings. Here in this context, yoga means that which makes us realize the ultimate reality. Tat prapti upaya. In this context, yoga should be understood as the upaya or the way to get connected with Ishvara. So here, what is the way? Abhyasa itself is the yoga. Practice itself is yoga. And what is this practice? Constantly keeping the mind fixed on Ishvara and not letting this getting interrupted by any contrary idea. A very important point. These are all very significant ideas given to us, which we as a sadhaka should be focusing upon if our aim is to realize the ultimate reality. So Krishna is saying, Chetasa anuchintayan, with the mind engrossed in meditation and engrossed in Abhyasa Yoga. Abhyasa Yoga means that striving of the mind to constantly keep it on fixed on Ishvara, na anyagamina, and not letting it stray away into anything else apart from Ishvara. Every word is important. Just imagine, constantly there is only one thought, one content in the mind. The mind is now having only one content, and that is Ishvara and Ishvara alone. No other content apart from Ishvara. To keep the mind in such a way, through Abhyasa Yoga and not letting the mind have any other content apart from Ishvara. So, Abhyasa Yoga Yuktena Chetasa Nanyagamina Paramam Purusham Divyam Yati Partha Anuchintayan. So a person who has got his mind fixed in this way, a mind which is continuously having Ishvara alone as its content, with no other contrary idea occupying the mind, for this person what happens? Paramam Purusham Divyam Yati. That person attains that supreme person, Paramam Purusham, that supreme reality becomes attainable for this person. Now see, this is the practice. When we talk about realizing God, or attaining the Supreme Reality, this is the practice. And habitual remembrance of God. As I said in the last class, a habitual remembrance of God becomes the cause of attainment of God. That is what is Abhyasa Yoga. And Abhyasa, a practice in which the seeker of Supreme Reality strives to keep his mind occupied with only one idea and which is not interrupted by any contrary idea. This is what is Abhyasa, and this Abhyasa itself is Yoga, the way to attain that ultimate reality. So when one is engaged in this kind of a practice through which he doesn't allow his mind to get strayed away into anything apart from Ishvara, through this kind of a practice, this person succeeds in attaining that supreme reality, which is Ishvara. In this practice, there is one thing which is notable. As I said, this constant habitual remembrance of God. When we are talking about constant habitual remembrance of God, we should remember in that there is a very important thing to be taken note of. And that is, we should learn to spiritualize everything. I always ask this question. We can have one vision or one kind of an understanding in which we think that this is world and there is a second entity called Ishvara or God. This is one vision or one kind of an understanding with which we can live. Usually this is the idea with which we are habituated to conduct our day-to-day life. We have taken it for granted that this is something called world. And there is a second distinct entity called Ishvara. Second distinct entity. Now, in this situation, if you have to constantly remember God, there is a tremendous tug of war. Because it is a tug of war between two things. If in your awareness, two things exist, and you have a sense of realism about both of them, for you, world is also really existing, and there is a second entity called Ishvara, which is also existing. Now your mind keeps on jumping from one extreme to the other extreme. This is one way of struggling to remember God. In the initial stages, this is what happens. But now here a question comes, is this position the real position? Are there two things, one called Jagat and the second called Ishvara? This is something which we have to seriously think about. If you just remember what we studied in the 7th chapter, what did we study? That Krishna speaks about the two Prakritis, the Para Prakriti and the Apara Prakriti. And whose Prakriti these are? These are Ishvara's own two Prakritis. Apara Prakriti refers to matter. Para Prakriti refers to consciousness. And these two Prakritis, matter and consciousness, they belong to whom? They belong to Ishvara. And whatever we are seeing here, Krishna so beautifully concluded saying that this is all nothing but Ishvara in so many forms. Shankaracharya beautifully comments there saying that Prakriti dvayadvarena aham sarvagya Ishvara jagata karanam. That Ishvara, which is sarvagya, omniscient, is the cause of everything here through its own two Prakriti. What it means to say that Ishvara alone is existing. Matta parataram nanyat kinchidasti dhananjaya mai sarvamidam protam sutre manigana iva. So beautiful. There is nothing superior than me, hey Arjuna. I run through everything just like a thread which runs through the different flowers which goes into the making of a beautiful garden. Similarly here, whatever we are seeing, all these different forms, they are like different flowers which are being held together by the thread of Ishvara. making a beautiful garland, a divine garland. This is the way of spiritualizing everything when we change our vision, when we shift our vision from the idea that there are two things existing to the higher vision that there are no two things, it is one and one alone. Ishvara alone is existing. Whatever we are seeing, it is Ishvara's forms. This is the constant refrain of all the Upanishads. This is the constant theme of Bhagavad Gita. This is the constant theme found in Sri Shankaracharya's works. And this is the teaching of Sri Ramakrishna and Swami Vivekananda. That there are no two things. Whatever we are seeing, whatever we are thinking, whatever we are feeling, these are all just like wheels. The wheels, if you tear the wheel, you will find it is Ishvara. It is Ishvara which is appearing in so many forms. Our every thought has got Ishvara alone as its essential content. I repeat this word. See, different thoughts are going on in everybody's mind. Constantly it is going on. But the essential, the core content of every thought is Ishvara and Ishvara alone. That essential, the core content is covered by so-called different ideas. These ideas are the coverings which is covering the hidden Ishvara. Whether you take the physical plane, these physical bodies, they're all just like wheels which is hiding the supreme reality. The essential content of all these different forms is nothing but Ishvara and Ishvara alone. Then you go to the plane of ideas. No matter what thoughts come into your mind, every thought has got Ishvara as its essential content. Every thought has got only one meaning, Ishvara. Your feelings. The feelings are also just like so many wheels which is covering the essential content which is Ishvara. It's a very significant, very profound investigation of what is the essential content of each one of us. So when you come to this kind of a changed vision about what is essentially existing here, inside every form, now you see, remembrance of Ishvara becomes sahaja, natural, spontaneous. You don't have to strive to do that. You change your vision, spiritualize everything, know that there is no two entities existing here. It is only one reality which is appearing in so many forms. Now, abhyasa yoga yuktena chetasa nanyagamina. Now you can do this abhyasa yoga, constantly sticking to this vision in which the only one content existing in your mind will be Ishvara and Ishvara alone. And your mind cannot stray away into anything else because you are convinced that there is nothing existing apart from Ishvara. Now for this person, what is the outcome? Paramam Purusham Divyam Yati Partha Anuchintayan. This yogi who is doing this kind of anuchinta, who is meditating in this way, he is going to attain that supreme reality. So beautiful. So what is the meaning of this habitual remembrance? Essentially, it is the changing of the vision. The changing of the vision from the idea that there are two things existing and coming to the right vision that there are no two things. It is only one reality which is appearing in so many forms. This we should emphasize and try to practice in our day-to-day life. Essentially, it means what? Spiritualizing everything. There is one most important Upanishad, Ishavasya Upanishad, which starts with this very idea. Spiritualize everything. Ishavasya midam sarvam. Yatkincha jagatyam jagat. So beautiful. Whatever is moving here, Ishavasyam. Cover everything with that one reality. Because that's the fact. That's a simple reality. There are no two things existing here. Ishvara alone is manifesting here in so many forms. Then, now, this person who is practicing this kind of remembrance, this kind of remembrance means who is living in this kind of a vision. who is habituated to be in this kind of a vision. What is the vision? That there are no two things. Whatever I am seeing, whatever I am hearing, whatever I am experiencing, it is all Ishvara in so many forms. One who has become habituated to live in this kind of an awareness, that person attains that supreme reality. Now the next question is, what is the nature of the supreme reality? Shankaracharya asks this question. To what kind of a person does he go? This person, this yogi who is practicing this kind of a vision, he attains that supreme reality or the supreme person. But what kind of a person? What is the nature of that supreme reality? Krishna says, what is the nature of that supreme reality? It's a description of the supreme reality, the next verse. A beautiful description. The description of the goal which we all are aspiring to attain. Is the description of the goal which all of us are aspiring to attain. So what is that goal? Krishna says here, Kavim Puranam Manushasitaram Anoraniyam Sam Anusmaredyah Sarvasya Dhataram Achintya Rupam Aditya Varnam Tamasat Parastat. So what is the supreme reality? It's a very simple description. Kavi. Usually Kavi means poet. But Kavi, in our Upanishadic literature, Kavi refers to, Shankaracharya says, Kavi is Krantadarshi. Krantadarshi means one who knows everything of the past, present and future. Krantadarshi, Trikaladarshi. So Ishvara alone is Trikaladarshi. So Ishvara is referred to as Kavi. Kavi means omniscient, Sarvagya, Krantadarshi, Trikaladarshi. Ishvara's one description is Kavi. So Kavi means one who knows everything of the past, the present, and the future. Ishvara is Kavi. Puranam. Puranam means what? Eternal. One who is existing at all points of time. Ishvara. Ishvara is omniscient, Krantadarshi, the knower of the past, the present and the future. And Ishvara is eternal, Puranam. Kavim Puranam. Anushasitaram. And Ishvara is the ruler. He is the ruler of everything. Ishvara rules everything. Ishvara alone is existing. It is as if Ishvara is ruling Ishvara. Now, when we talk about a ruler, then there has to be a ruled, is it not? If the king is the ruler, the subjects are those who are ruled by the king. But here it's the interesting point is that Ishvara is the ruler and Ishvara alone is the ruled. But he's the ruler. In this play is going on. Ishvara appears in so many forms and it is appearing as if Ishvara is the ruler of these forms of Ishvara. So Ishvara is the ruler, Anushasitaram. Anoraniyansam. This Ishvara is subtler than the subtle. Aniyansam, Anoho. Anoho, Aniyansam. This Ishvara is subtler than the subtle. It is the subtlest entity. That's why you see, unless we rise above our gross vision, we can never understand what this reality is. As long as we are engrossed only with the gross things of this world, we will never be able to understand what that supreme reality is. That is why the whole struggle is to make our vision subtler and subtler and subtler. Kathopanishad speaks about this. You have to become Sukshmadarshi, a person who can perceive the subtle dimensions. Presently, we have become habituated only to perceive the gross dimension. Sadhana is what? Nothing else but developing that capability to perceive the subtle dimensions beyond this gross. That is what is sadhana. When we continuously practice in meditation, an amazing faculty opens up, a yogyata, a capacity comes through which the jiva begins to perceive the subtle dimensions beyond this gross. Now, all these things can come only when we practice these things. Without practice, nothing is going to happen. So, Ano Aniyansam, it is subtler than the subtle. Anusmaredhyaha, one who remembers this Ishvara, who is of this kind. And what? This Ishvara is Sarvasya Dhataram. Sarvasya Dhataram means one who ordains everything. One who ordains what? One who ordains or distributes the fruits of the actions done by the jiva. Ishvara is described to be the karma phaladata in our Vedanta. Ishvara is the karma phaladata. So he is the person who distributes the fruits, the phalam of the karma performed by the different jivas. So sarvasya dhataram. And then what? Achintya rupam. That Ishvara's form is inconceivable, incomprehensible. It is achintya rupam. It is not the vishaya of human chinta. Means human mind cannot comprehend or conceive Ishvara's form. So all the forms that we are actually conceiving of Ishvara, these are all just helping factors to come to the real form of Ishvara, which is beyond all human conception or comprehension. Human mind's comprehension and conception. It is trans-mental, trans our antakarana. This is what it means. Human mind cannot conceive or comprehend what Ishvara is. So it is achintya rupam. And aditya varnam, it is like the effulgence of Aditya, sun. In the solar system we have the sun, and here the sun is the most luminous object existing in the solar system. Similarly, here the light or the light of Ishvara is compared to, it is a comparison made, just for us to, for us to understand in a very distant manner. This is just a description to facilitating for we human beings who are living in a very gross plane, for us to just even conceive what is this Ishvara. So this light of luminosity of the sun is taken as an example. Just like, because this is the only luminosity we understand in our gross plane, the luminosity of the sun, which is most luminous object in the solar system. So Krishna is saying it is something of that kind. Ishvara's effulgence is compared to the effulgence of the sun. So Aditya Varnam, it is something like the effulgence of the sun. Means it is Ishvara which is actually manifesting in the form of consciousness here. That is the point actually. Shankaracharya says in his commentary, it is Ishvara which is manifesting in the form of consciousness in everybody. This light of consciousness which we are seeing, it is actually the light of Ishvara which is getting manifested in every forms here. And then what? Tamasa parastar. This Ishvara is what? It is beyond darkness of delusion. Tama means darkness. And what is this darkness? This darkness is the darkness of delusion. Moha. Moha is the darkness. And it is of the nature of ignorance, avidya. Means Ishvara is that which is beyond avidya, beyond the delusion, beyond the darkness of delusion. So this is just a description of the Supreme Reality. In short, Krishna says, how is the Supreme Reality? The Supreme Reality whom we are referring to as Ishvara is omniscient, Kavim, Puranam, it is eternal, Anushasitaram, it is the ruler of everything. And then what? It is Anoraniyamsam, it is subtler than the subtle. And Sarvasya Dhataram, it is the one who distributes the fruits of actions of all the jivas. And Achintya Rupam, it is inconceivable. Human mind cannot conceive the Supreme Reality. Achintya Rupam. And Aditya Varnam, it is like the effulgence of the sun. And Tamasa Parastar, it is beyond the darkness of delusion. So one who meditates on the Supreme Reality of this kind will attain that reality. And now this kind of remembrance of Ishvara should go on habitually in an unbroken manner. It has to be done with all earnestness. with a mind which is saturated with bhakti. That is the point. Now see, this is also the description of our Ishta. Now most of us here are initiated devotees here, and we have been given our Ishta. This is actually the description of our Ishta. Ishvara. Ishvara is our Ishta in a certain form. And this is the description, the real nature of our Ishta is this. This is what we are actually meditating upon. When we are meditating upon our Ishta is nothing but the supreme reality of this kind, for whom we should have an habitual remembrance about him in an unbroken manner, with a mind which is full of devotion, which has to be done with all earnestness. This is the point. Now, further, Krishna says, now comes the description of what we are supposed to do in the final moments. When the jiva is now ready to depart, we all have to come to that point someday or the other. When the jiva is now ready to leave his gross body, what is he supposed to see? So such a beautiful thing is, who can tell us how to leave the body? Who can tell us apart from the Guru and the Shastras? So it is good to know, so that we become prepared. Everyone has to come to this point one day when we will have to shed this gross body. At those moments, what should be the focus of our mind? As I said, not I, as Krishna is saying here, that if you have practiced habitual remembrance of Ishvara during your day-to-day life, throughout your life, in the final moments, you will be succeeding in easily remembering Ishvara, and you can leave the body. This is the principle. And suppose if we have become habituated to remember only the things of the world, then in the final moments also, that is the thing which will occupy our mind and we attain to this worldly state. This is a simple principle. Therefore, Sri Krishna now says, Prayana kale manasachalena bhaktya yukto yoga balena chaiva Bhruvor madhye pranamaveshya samyak satam param purushamupaiti divyam yadaksharam vedavido vadanti vishanti yadhyatayo vitaragaha yadichanto brahmacharyam charanti tatte padam sangrahena prabhakshe. Now, the struggle of the jiva to keep his mind on Ishvara in the final moments. What is he supposed to do? Prayana kale. Krishna says, Prayana kala means what? At the time of shedding this gross body. Now when we have come to that state, when we are now almost about to shed this gross body, Prayana kala. At that time, what are we supposed to do? Bhruvor madhye pranam aveshya samyak. The whole struggle is what? At the time of death, when we are now ready to leave this gross body, the struggle is to what? To raise our pranas and bring it to the center of the eyebrows. Krishna is saying that. Prayana kale bhruvor madhye pranam aveshya samyak. Bhruvor madhye samyak pranam aveshya. Prayana kale. Very interesting. Now what we are going to discuss is actually very subtle. We can listen to it. Most of us will fail to conceive what is being told because we have not done sadhana. But when we do sadhana, these things will be blazingly clear. What Krishna is talking about here. So Krishna is talking about a great striving in which we are now handling not gross things, because the gross thing is going to be shed here. It's a very important point. And those final moments, our engagement is not going to be with the gross things, because this gross layer is the one thing which we are going to shed. It will be burnt in the Smashan Ghat, is it not? So now we are not busy with the gross. Now we are now negotiating with subtle and subtler and subtler entities inside this body-mind complex. So when that part is being described, it is very difficult for most of us to conceive, because we have not trained ourselves to understand the subtle dimensions of human personality. But still it is good to listen to it, so that if we become aware of actually what we are supposed to do in the final moments, it will help us. At least we can strive in those final moments. If we remember these words, and if we are conscious enough, perhaps we can put in some efforts to accomplish what this great teacher of spirituality is teaching us. So Krishna is saying here, what are we supposed to do in those final moments when we are now going to shed the gross structure? Our engagement is not with the gross structure anymore. Now our engagement is essentially with the vital force, pranam. And this pranam has to be, now presently our pranam is completely, it is drowned, I should say, it is drowned in this gross structure. Now it is withdrawing this pranam from the gross structure, and the struggle is to take this prana to the center of the eyebrows. You can just listen to it. How to do this? Every word is important. Krishna is saying, Manasa achalena. Now see, this is all tremendous practice. Only a person who has done this throughout his life. What? Throughout our life, if we train our mind to be above the demands of the physical structure and be focused on the higher reality, then only in the final moments we shall succeed to do what Krishna is talking about here. So in the final moment, the struggle is to raise the prana from the lower planes and bring it to the center of the eyebrow. How do you do it? Shankaracharya says, initially what has to be done? Manasa achalena, with an unwavering mind. Means with a focused mind, unwavering mind. Every word can be elaborated. Actually, we don't have that much time. What do you mean by an unwavering mind? The mind which has given up its usual worldly kind of functions. An unwavering mind means a mind which is usually habituated to function in a worldly way. The mind has given up that kind of functioning. That mind becomes an unwavering mind when that mind now is habituated to have only one content. That is Ishvara. Now this is an unwavering mind. With an unwavering mind, manasa achalena, bhaktya, and that very mind which is imbued with devotion, love. Now love comes here. Love for whom? For husbands and wives and children. Our whole life, our love is always centered on all these different entities. Towards the end, suddenly the mind is not going to love God. Let us make this point very clear. As long as we are habituated to have all our emotions centered on the different human beings with whom we are living, during the final moments, your love is not going to get shifted from those human beings to Ishvara. It's not going to happen. It is only when we continuously practice true bhakti, loving Ishvara and Ishvara alone, in the final moments the mind will be imbued with that bhakti. So manasa achalena and bhaktya, with an unwavering mind and a mind which is imbued with bhakti. And there is third factor, beautiful, every word is important. Yoga balena chaiva. Balam. Now here Krishna is talking about balam, strength. What kind of strength? Yoga balam. The balam of yoga. Shankaracharya makes a beautiful comment there. What is this yoga bala? Let me make it very simple. When we are practicing spiritual absorption in our day-to-day life, you see, we are all bhaktas. I'm sure we are all practicing meditation morning and evening at least. When we are practicing meditation means what? Making our mind absorbed in the supreme reality in a certain form. When we sit down to meditate, what are we doing? In the meditation, every day we are actually rising above this gross body. We are all doing it. In meditation, every day we are doing it. We are shedding our connection with the gross body, and the mind is made to be absorbed in the supreme reality in a certain form. Doesn't matter. Perfectly fine. This is happening. And when we are doing it regularly and continuously, day after day, years after years, what is happening is this activity is leaving a certain kind of a samskara, impression on the mind. The impression of spiritual absorption and the accumulated totality of these impressions, they themselves become a great force, a strength. It's a tremendous thing it is. Now, this person who has practiced this kind of spiritual absorption throughout his life or her life, towards the end, in those final moments, that person will be endowed with this tremendous force, balam of yoga, the strength coming from the practice of concentration. This strength of concentration stands with that person in the final moments and helps that person remain connected with the supreme reality. So beautiful. Every word is important. We can expound it hours together. So Krishna is saying here, the target is what? To raise the prana from lower levels and bring it to the center of our eyebrows. But how do you do that? You do that with an unwavering mind, a mind which is imbued with devotion, bhakti, and a mind which is endowed with the strength coming from the practice of spiritual absorption, which is done throughout the life. With this kind of a mind, this person will succeed in raising his prana and bringing it to the center of his eyebrows. And then what? A person who succeeds in bringing his whole awareness to the center of his... Now, bringing prana to the center of the eyebrow means shifting the awareness from lower centers to the higher center. That is the only meaning. You're shifting your awareness from lower centers and raising it to higher levels. That's the meaning. Now, what happens? Any person who succeeds in doing this, what happens? Satam param purusham upaiti. That person will attain that param purusham, that supreme person, Ishvara. A person who succeeds in this way, raising his awareness from lower levels, lower centers, and bringing it to the higher center which is in the center of the eyebrows. In this way, which way? We have seen, with an unwavering mind, with a mind which is filled with the bhava of bhakti, and a mind which is having the balam, the strength coming from the practice of spiritual absorption. With this kind of a mind, we, all of us, can raise our awareness from lower levels and bring it to higher centers. And this person, through this practice, in the final moments, if he succeeds to do that, he or she will be attaining that supreme reality. So good. Very easy. But this is the great possibility waiting to happen in our lives. But it all depends upon what we are doing in our day-to-day life, where our interests are today. As long as your interests lie in this mithya jagat, as long as you think that there is a second entity called Jagat and all these entities are something different from Ishvara, and all your emotions and everything is centered in these different individuals, we shall not be successful in doing what Krishna is talking about here. So this is something, it's like there is something called preparing ourselves for the final moment. Shankaracharya is going to tell something amazing 2 verses later. Something amazing. It will be intimidating. What he is going to say, it may appear to be formidable and intimidating. We'll see. Very interesting points. But it's very much possible. It all depends upon the kind of life that we are habituated to lead here. Now, Krishna then says, so this is the way, this will continue in the next 2-3 verses. Krishna then says, Yad aksharam veda vido vadanti. The knowers of Vedas. Veda vid means what? The knowers of the Vedas. The knowers of the Vedas, the great rishis, they talk about what? That akshara purusha, that immutable, indestructible reality. Yadaksharam veda vido vadanti, vishanti yat yatayo vitaraga. And the great yatis means those who strive. Yatana shila, those who strive, those yatis, vishanti. Vishanti means they enter into that supreme reality. How do they enter into that supreme reality? By experiencing that reality. Shankaracharya says, what do you mean by entering into that supreme reality? When we experience that supreme reality as our true nature, when we experience that supreme reality as the true nature of what we are seeing here, that is the meaning of entering into it. Today we are not experiencing that, that's why we are as if we are outside of it. When we shall experience the true nature of what is here and what is outside, you will see it is one reality, you have entered into it. And who can enter into it? Vitaraga. Those people who are above worldly attachments. Every point is important. As long as we are attached to this raga, Shankaracharya beautifully discusses this point in Viveka Chudamani. Amazing discussion about raga, how this raga kills us. Attachment to this person, that person, attachment to the different destructible objects of this world. It literally kills us. Kills us means what? It keeps us away from Ishvara. That is the killing, nothing else. We remain tied down, totally bound to this mithya dimension. We will never understand what the reality is as long as raga is there. Raga is the main dosha in our spiritual life. So Krishna is saying here, Vishanti yad yatayo vitaraga. These great strivers, they enter into the supreme reality, and these strivers are devoid of attachment. Yadichanto brahmacharyam charanti. And aspiring which the seekers of truth practice celibacy. Brahmacharyam charanti. Aspiring the supreme reality, these seekers, these sadhakas, they practice self-control, self-restraint. Without the practice of self-restraint, no one can realize the ultimate reality. So, yadichanto brahmacharyam charanti, tatte padam sangrahena pravakshi. Krishna says, I am going to talk about that padam. Padam refers to that supreme goal. I am going to talk about that supreme goal, which is Ishvara. I am going to talk about that in brief. Krishna is again reiterating this point. See, I am showing you what the supreme reality is. That reality which is spoken by the knowers of the Vedas, that reality which yatis enter into it by realizing it, yatis who are devoid of attachment, and for which people practice celibacy, that supreme reality I am going to talk about in brief. Now, again, coming back to those final moments, 2 more verses I will take today, and then we can stop. It's very significant. I hope you won't mind continuing for 10 more minutes. It's a very significant and very, very important verses, the next 2 verses. Krishna says here, again, coming back to, you can just imagine, we are lying on the deathbed, just breathing the final few breaths. What is the state of our mind at that time? Sri Ramakrishna beautifully says, worldly people who have lived a life fully engrossed in the world, me and mine, me and mine, me and mine, my husband, my wife, my children, my money, my family, my property. Sri Ramakrishna so beautifully says, such a person, now he's in his last moments. Just imagine, just few more breaths, maybe 10, 15 breaths left. And he's calling his son and saying, son, you see that lamp, the wick of the lamp is burning. Just reduce that wick of the lamp. See, so much of oil is being spent. Can you imagine? The person who is lying on the deathbed at the last moments, his whole concern is, again, this saving the money. He wants to save the money. He says, see, so much of oil is being burned. Just reduce that wick a little bit. Now, if this is the way, if the person is going to leave his body, where is he going to come? He will be nicely coming back to this world. This is one state possible. And the opposite of that is this. A person who has abhyasa yoga yuktena chetasa nanyagamina paramam purusham divyam yati partha anuchintayan. Beautiful. A person who has practiced spiritual absorption throughout his life, he can raise his awareness from the lower levels and bring it to the higher centers. And how to do that? By an unwavering mind, a mind which is imbued and saturated with devotion, bhakti for the supreme reality. Bhakti is what? Bhakti is nothing but swaswaroopanusandhanam. It is a tremendous longing for the attainment of the supreme reality. That is bhakti. So a mind which is endowed and imbued, saturated with this kind of a one-pointed longing to reach the supreme reality, and then what? Which is endowed with a tremendous balam. A very important point which Krishna brings about here is yoga balam. We know bahu balam. We know buddhi balam also. There is something called yoga balam. Swami Ranganathanji Maharaj is very fond of comparing these three things. Bahu balam is the strength of the body. That is nothing compared to buddhi balam. And even higher than buddhi balam is yoga balam. The yoga balam which comes by an habituated state of the mind. Habituated in what? Habituated in spiritual absorption. It's an amazing thing. And it is this strength which stands with us in the final moments. So, endowed with this kind of a strength, yoga balam and bhakti, and with an unwavering mind, in the final moments we can raise our consciousness to higher levels. And then what? Krishna says, Sarvadvarani sanyamya mano hridi nirudhya cha murnyadhayatmana pranam astito yoga dharanam. Krishna says here, beautiful. Sarvadvarani sanyamya. By controlling all the doors of perception. Dwara means doors. By controlling all the doors of sensory perception. Means completely by restraining the sensory system and the sense organs. Sarvadvarani sanyamya. And what about the mind? Mano hridi nirudhya cha. The mind is now focused, or mind is withdrawn. Where? In the lotus of the heart. Hridi. Now we can just listen about this. Now what is this hridayam? Most of us won't understand because we have not practiced it. When we do sadhana, these things will become clear. Hridayam is not this mansa pindam. Shankaracharya always keeps on saying. It is not this heart, the blood pumping machine, which is referred to as heart. Heart refers to the, I should say, in a very simple language, it is the subtlest dimension of our subtle body, which is buddhi. It is the cave of the buddhi. Means you may say it is that state which is on the threshold of the subtle body and the causal body. Something like that. So you can just listen to it. It may not make any sense because these are all trans-physical things which we are not used to. That's why we won't be able to conceive what is being told here. But to put it in one short manner, we can say that this heart which is being referred to it is the subtlest dimension of the psychophysical system. In fact, no physical system, the psychological system. Let us just leave away this physical system. It has got nothing to do with the physical system. It is the subtlest dimension of the subtle body, standing on the threshold of the Sukshma Sharira and Karana Sharira. You can just. So now, Krishna is saying, Sarvadvarani Sanyamya, by restraining all the doors of perception, means sense organs, Jnanendriyas and Karmendriyas, and Mano Hridhi Nirudhyacha, mind which is now fully withdrawn into Hridayam, into that Buddhi Guha. Then what? Murdhni Adhaya Atmana Pranam. Again, the same thing. Raising the prana to Murdhni. Murdhni means the head, to the higher regions. Means raising the awareness to higher centers of consciousness. Murdhni Adhaya Atmana Pranam. By raising one's prana, one's awareness to the region of the head, means raising it to higher levels. Astito Yoga Dharanam. And this yogi now continues the practice of yoga. In that state, can you imagine in the final moments, this practice, this person is fully into profound concentration and meditation. Physically, his body is now immobile, but internally, his Sukshma Sharira is completely focused on the ultimate reality. By that focusing, he has raised his awareness from lower centers to the higher center. That is the point. So, in the final moments, here Krishna is saying, Sarvadvarani Sanyamya, by restraining all the doors of perception and withdrawing the mind into the heart, as I said, which is Buddhi Guha, or the cave of the Buddhi, which is the subtlest dimension of the subtle body, and there, being focused there, in and through that, what is he doing? Shankaracharya makes this point very clear. Now, this is very in the yogic language. He says that what is happening is in and through the central nerve channel. He talks about the Sushumna Nadi. In and through the central nerve channel, Sushumna Nadi, this dying man is now raising his consciousness to higher planes and brings it to the level of the head. Murdhni Adhaya Atmana Pranam. He raises the prana to the level of the head, means he is raising his awareness to the higher planes. And then what? Next verse is beautiful. It says, Om ityekaksharam brahma vyaharan mamanusmaran yaprayati tyajan deham sayati paramam gatem. So beautiful. After raising this awareness to higher planes and bringing it to the level of the head, that means the physical associations have gone. Can you imagine? All the physical associations have gone. Our usual identity with the physical structure, I am this, I am that, it's all left behind now. This person's awareness is so raised to higher levels that his understanding about himself is totally of different kind. He is now struggling to find its identity with the Supreme Reality. And in this process now, after having raised his awareness to the level of the head, how? By closing all the doors of sense perception and by withdrawing the mind into the Buddhi Guha, he has raised his awareness to the level of the head, which is happening in and through the canal called Sushumna Nadi. Let us not worry about it. These are all very mystical things Shankaracharya talks about here. But don't worry about it. What the main point is, this person's, the dying man's awareness is now raised to the highest level, which is in the head. Then, in that state, what is he going to do now? Om. Om iti ekaksharam. The single syllable, the sound, Om. Now, what is this Om? This requires a little bit explanation. Perhaps in the next class I will try to put some light on this. But today, let us just learn one thing. The Supreme Reality actually can have only one name. The natural name of the Supreme Reality is Om. There is nothing greater than Om. Om is the Vachaka. Vachaka means the name of the Supreme Reality. And Om is also the Pratika of the Supreme Reality. Shankaracharya says, It is Brahma Vachakam as well as Brahma Pratikam. The greatest symbol and the greatest name of the Supreme Reality is Om and Om alone. To that we add other human names. All our mantras are what? We know. That is for us to help the so-called the common man to reach the higher reality. But actually the only name, the natural name possible for the Supreme Reality is Om and Om alone. Now this dying person who has raised his awareness to the level of the head, in those final moments, what is he doing? Om iti ekaksharam Brahma. The single syllable whose meaning is Supreme Reality, Brahma, Vyaharan. Vyaharan means he utters. Now he is not uttering it physically. It is a mental utterance. Vyaharan, Mam Anusmaran. He is uttering it mentally, knowing fully the meaning of this utterance. The meaning of this utterance of Om is what? Para, Apara, Brahman. Brahman, which is both Para as well as Apara. Nirguna as well as Saguna. That is the meaning of Om. Supreme Reality. So beautiful. He is uttering this single syllable, Om, with this full understanding. Mamanusmaran. He is uttering Om with the remembrance of the Supreme Reality. This utterance, this sound is the final, I should say, the final support in and through which that person remembers the Supreme Reality. Because Om means that Supreme Reality, and the only name possible for the Supreme Reality is Om. Om means everything. With this understanding, he is now ready to leave the body. So, Om iti ekaksharam Brahma, Vyaharan, Mam Anusmaran, Yaprayati. One who leaves the body in this way, what happens? Sayati Paramam Gatim. That person attains the Supreme Gati. This is how we are supposed to. A real yogi will leave his body in this way. So it's a beautiful subject. And now this continues now. Beautiful points are waiting to come. A few verses later, a very significant idea is going to be placed before all of us, where Shankaracharya makes a brilliant comment. Perhaps we'll see it in the next class. In the next class, we can focus a little bit on this Om also to understand. Om is the only natural name possible for the Supreme Reality. The Supreme Reality is nameless. Actually speaking, it is beyond all names. But if at all there has to be one name, that name is Om. Nothing is greater than Om. Om is the name of the Supreme Reality. Om is also the symbol of the Supreme Reality. So this is how this person leaves the body. I will just wind it up in 2-3 minutes. What we studied today, very important, Abhyasa Yoga. Now, how are we going to be successful in doing this? Going back to what we started from, Abhyasa Yoga. Abhyasa Yoga is the secret. The yoga of practice. Yoga of constantly striving to have only one content in the mind. And that one content is what? Ishvara and Ishvara alone. And this can become possible only when we understand that there is no second entity existing apart from Ishvara. In this way, when we practice spiritual or Ishvara absorption through this kind of a change of vision, then in and through that, we succeed in the final moments. As I said, Krishna said that in the final moments, this person, owing to his bhakti for the Supreme Reality and owing to the accumulated samskaras of spiritual absorption, which itself becomes a tremendous force which stands with him in the final moments, in and through these two things, through bhakti and yoga bala, this person will successfully raise his consciousness to higher levels and utter Om and leave the gross body. And in this way, this person attains the Supreme Reality. Let's stop here. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat.